Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones. This evening's topic, I'm going to talk about why the ghetto mindset brings down the African American community. The ghetto mindset brings down the African American community. Now, what do we do about the ghetto mindset? That is all encompassing the mindset of ignorance that has grown from street life. The get over any way you can mindset that more than anything else underscores the essence of the ghetto mindset or the ghetto mentality. What do we do as African Americans about this problem? All that is negative represents the ghetto mentality. Now, what do I mean by the ghetto mindset? Well, I'll get to that in a few. I will tell you, there is nothing positive and enlightening or uplifting about the ghetto mindset. Yet too many black folk live and die by the ghetto mentality. It replaces all social consciousness, even if it has never existed in some folks' mind at all. So, what kinds of thoughts permeate the ghetto mindset? Told you I was going to answer that for you. Well, here's some examples. And this has been going on for the last 50 years. So it's not new and it's not shocking. Referring to every black woman, not as black women, but as bitches and hoes. You hear that in your rap music. You've seen it on television. But it's funny because you have a number of black people who love watching these shows like Empire and Power on television. And what do they represent? Violence. And it seems to me that African Americans are drawn to violence and drama. They go hand in hand. But at the end of the day, they keep setting us back. Now, another example of ghetto is calling all men dogs. But yet, these folks from the ghetto defend that mindset. Now, they're smoking and drinking and whatever are the very least things that grown folk might do every now and then. But for folk who've been afflicted with the ghetto mindset, this is part of everyday life. It shouldn't be, but of course, don't tell your black pastor. Why? Because these black pastors have the ghetto mindset because they use their congregation as a hustle. And once they use their congregation, they suck all the common sense from their brains. Why? Because the black pastor knows that his congregants are ignorant and he can get anything out of them to enhance his lifestyle. Now, I'm not saying everybody who goes to church is ignorant, but you have a number of them who are because they live in an environment where they believe they have no hope. Now, let me give you a good example that everybody has known if you've lived in urban areas. And one thing that I can't stand, but it does happen. If I'm riding on a train or a bus and somebody's talking loudly on their phone, and you tell them, can you speak a little lower? Well, they'll get upset. And they'll get upset, want to curse you out, want to fight. Well, that mindset is definitely ghetto. Now, if you confront that person, they're going to think there's a problem with you. They're going to think that you're disrespecting them. They're going to become the victim. But see, individuals who have that ghetto mindset have no respect for others, regardless of who they are. Like I said, black folk should not defend this mindset because it makes us all look bad as a race. Now, people afflicted by it, as I have spoken, have no regards to others' feelings, opinions, or needs. But as soon as they get confronted, they scream about being disrespected or mistreated. So here's what I'm going to tell you folks from the ghetto. If you're confronted, good for you. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Because some of you with that mindset don't care about yourselves. In fact, you put that dysfunction on Facebook and YouTube, and you get upset if brothers like Donald Washington, and shout out to him, and brother Tommy Sotomayor expose you for it. And then you want to get their videos flagged. Well, what those brothers are doing, yes, they may be a little rough on the edges when they talk about you as a person, but what they're doing, they're letting everybody know what goes on in that type of environment, and it should be called out. The bottom line is the ghetto can be a good place to live if we get rid of the mindset, the welfare mindset. Now, there are a lot of things that have plagued the African American community, but the biggest one is the lack of resources and the lack of family. And when you don't have any of those items, I don't care who you are, your community is going to fall. And that's what's going on in the black community today, and it's been going on for the last 50 years, and it's getting worse. Now, the ghetto mentality or mindset should never be confused with the concept of keeping it real. Now, the mentality blurs the clear lines between the two. Remember, it destroys common sense, and I'm talking about the ghetto mentality. That's never truer than incidents involving the so-called snitching, because if you snitch according to the ghetto mentality or ghetto mindset, you're doing something wrong. So black folks keep their mouths shut when crimes are committed within their community. That's a tragedy, and this actually happened. And this took place in Austin, Texas. The tragedy involving Devin Dyer and many other innocent victims of violence. Now, Devin, 18, was shot in the face while attending a nighttime party in an apartment building in Austin, Texas. Now, the shooter is still at large. Devin died. Now, according to his family and police, Devin was not the intended target. The innocent rarely are in the black community. Again, that's not using your head. That's negligence. When you live in violence every day, when it comes to African American people, you can't trust anybody, even the innocent. So what happens? The innocent become victims. The same incident happened over the weekend in Baltimore, Maryland, to a 7-year-old girl. Now, again, you also have to be aware of your surroundings. Now, Devin attended a party, and one thing that I don't do anymore, I do not go to a party with a bunch of Negroes. Why? Well, just like in Austin, Texas, you got too many Negroes, you know something's going to get started. Because the party that Devin attended was heavily crowded. Yet, about that shooting, it's funny because nobody has come forward. If people are afraid to come forward because they fear retaliation from the shooter or his crew, that's one thing. But don't forget the ghetto mindset, which translates calling criminals to account as snitching. Well, in the black community, if you snitch, and this is a code, you might find yourself face down in a ditch. That's how it works. It's almost mafia style. But if more people would report crimes in the African American community, their community could be a lot safer and more lives would be saved. But because they fear retaliation, they don't say anything at all. That's why when you ask them, did you see what happened? They'll say, I ain't seen nothing. When they know they have. Now, look closer at how perverted this mentality is. Now, this year marks the 50th anniversary of the Freedom Rides. Civil rights activists, college students, and young people of both races, and I'm talking about black and white, traveled on buses throughout the South during the summer of 1961. They rode to protest segregation. Hate-filled racist American terrorists, if you will, attacked, beat up, and tried to intimidate the Freedom Riders. Till this day, there are still unsolved crimes against many blacks at the hands of whites who lived in the South. Now, in other parts of the country as well, but they're not unsolved largely because the killers are unknown. In fact, the killers were not only, but they are still known. Again, the killers not only were, but they're still known. But all of them bragged about their crimes. Crimes involving keeping black folk in check, even if it meant killing them. In that sense, one must understand, is that not ghetto mindset akin to white supremacy hatred? Because I'm going to tell you this, the ghetto mindset and white supremacy, in my opinion, are one and the same. Because you have the lower life of your race who are committing all the atrocities in the communities. Now, the killer wouldn't get in trouble. In fact, the killers would be protected. You know what that's called? That's called insanity. But these folks who believe in and practice the ghetto mindset can't put it all together. It takes too much right thinking and brain power. But if someone killed a friend of someone afflicted with the ghetto mentality, it's all out war, and you know it. They'll do whatever they can do to find out who did it. Most people understand that. It's the same way as if I, as a man, told another man that if you harm my daughters or my sisters, I'd come after you. We would. But what about us? That's another video itself. Because we'll protect our own, but yet we'll be predatory. Because the number of people who have the ghetto mindset, and I'm not saying every black person has it, but if you look at the condition of the African American community, that's what you see. Because it comes from a mindset that has been driven by the welfare state. Now, I'm not saying that the government didn't put guns and drugs in the community. It happened as well. There are a lot of things that have gone wrong in the African American community. What I'm simply explaining in this video is that the ghetto mindset makes us look dysfunctional. And a number of us in the African American community are dysfunctional. Now, let me tell you this. Victims of violent crimes in the African American community deserve better. Devin Dyer, who was shot in his face at 18 years old, never had a chance. He didn't make 20. He didn't make 19. But because of some negligent folk who had their hand on the trigger because they wanted to prove how bad they are, took this young man's life. Now that's one example because it happens every day. Now look at how many shootings have taken place in Chicago. Over 1,400 shootings this year alone, and this year's half over. 295 people have been killed from gun violence. Now, I will tell you this about the ghetto mindset. It makes us look like savages. And I always call on the men to lead the charge. But see, the men in our community are weak. And I'm going to tell you why we're weak. We talk tough when it comes to each other, but we have that Wizard of Oz mindset. And if you understand the Wizard of Oz, with 4 characters who went down the yellow brick road to see the wizard so they can get each characteristic in check. Now, the 4 characters were the Lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and Dorothy. And when it comes to a number of our black men, we actually have that mindset. We will get on camera and talk tough. We will get behind a microphone and talk tough. But when the other man confronts us, we run with our tail between our legs. Or when that black pastor runs into us, we go out the back door. Now, I'm saying this about our black men because a number of us who live in this type of environment are savages. It's true. Now, I know Brother David Carroll calls them apes, but we do have the troglodyte behavior. It's harsh reality. See, we blame everything on white supremacy, but we fail to look at ourselves. So how can we be a victim on one hand, but be tough on the other hand? Because when we commit that crime and go in front of that judge, and that judge slams that gavel down after you murdered some innocent person, he says you're getting 30 years. You go from being a man to a bitch. That's how some of you Negroes are. But see, you go after each other. It's also characteristic of a simp. Now, the Wizard of Oz syndrome that I'm going to tell you about is this. Some of you black men out here got no courage, got no heart, got no brains, and you are effeminate. But you live on those streets and you're talking about how tough you are. I lived on those streets. I know how they are. But I'm still around. Some of you might not be around tomorrow because you put yourself in predicaments or yourselves in predicaments that you don't have to be in. Now, granted, you can't help being here if you were born to mothers who were irresponsible and dads who were irresponsible. See, in the black community, we must understand something. That prior to the government and the welfare system, we had intact families. In fact, both black men and black women were working, and they were working together. Now, what happened in the late 60s is that African American women were duped by white women to come on board white feminism. And when they did that, it wasn't what you think it is. That white woman was directed by the white man to get black women to join the feminist movement, not just for the numbers, but to classify all women as equal so they can give all women affirmative action. This is why the African American male and the African American female get the crumbs. And the white woman gets most of the quirks of affirmative action. Just because the white man ordered her to get black women on board with the feminist mindset. Now, some African American women have chosen that mindset. Some haven't. But at the end of the day, when you have a community that's fractured and there's no family, there's no resources, your community is going to cease to exist. And too many of us as African American people have the consumerist mindset. We want to make fast money. We don't understand investment, entrepreneurship. And at the end of the day, we're still at the bottom of the barrel. I don't care how many of us as African American folk have college degrees. And having a college degree does not mean anything because you're still black. We're stereotyped every day by the media about how bad we are. And there are a lot of other races who are looking at us. So when it comes to having that ghetto mindset, the ghetto mindset also comes with what you wear, how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you interact with others. And that ghetto mindset is going to do another thing for you. It's going to get you a felony. It's going to put you in a dysfunctional stage. And for your brothers and sisters out there in the hood, putting up your dysfunction on Facebook, that gives everybody an idea of that savage mindset that we portray. And unfortunately, with African American people, we seem to lump drama and entertainment in the same boat. When I look at some of the TV shows that involve blacks, besides the Cosby Show and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, most of what I've seen when it comes to black people, it's been nothing but ghetto, shooting, drugs. And at the end of the day, we're still at the bottom. Now I hit harder on the black men because we don't want to lead. But again, it's not all the black man's fault, because there are a number of African American women who don't want us to lead. And this is why they will date somebody of a lower level, because they want to control. See, the African American woman, the modern African American woman, which is today's African American woman, but she got that behavior from prior generations. But even prior generations didn't have as many feminist ideologues that they have now. But this African American woman of today doesn't want the man to lead. She believes that she can lead and provide, and she's been taught that. And it's not just been by her mother and her grandmother, it's been by television, social media, and her friends. And the music. You see, as African Americans, we have psychological problems. We are afraid to combat the other man. But everything is not the other man's fault. That's why I don't do videos on white supremacy. Yes, white supremacy is alive and well. It will always be there. But as black people, we're going to be looked at much harder than any other race. Why? Because we put ourselves in the arena to be marketed as buffoons. And the individuals who run the media make money off of us. And if you don't believe me, you look at the shows that came on, like Ricky Lake. You look at Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, Bill Cunningham. These are individuals who love putting us on television so we can make fools out of ourselves. And what mentality do we bring with us? The ghetto mentality. And they like it, because it makes us look like fools and them rich. But a lot of us don't want to see that. See, buck dancing and huckabucking as black people gets us nowhere. Now, can some of us get out of the ghetto? We could, but many won't. And as I continue to do videos like this, nobody's going to take heed of anything that's being told from my videos or any other person's videos who try to be model black people. So the only thing I can say, African American people like myself, you're going to have to do black flight. Get away from the ghetto. And with like minds, build our own economy. Because we have the education. We understand what it is to build communities. But the big problem is the men and women who have the ghetto mindset keep outbreeding us. And when that happens, we're going to get more and more savage behavior. Again, white supremacy does exist. It's white classism if you're white. But it's the lowest amongst us as African American people who are keeping us down. Why? Because their dysfunction is being magnified, which means we're all lumped into that same barrel. So what I'm suggesting is, if you are a decent African American male or female, continue to build your life and have no shame if you want to go out and enjoy your life. If you want to buy a nice car, if you want to buy a nice house, if you want to go to school, do it. Certainly, you're going to have the ones in the ghetto who are going to try to take it from you. But if you stand strong, you can defeat the ghetto mindset. Because everybody from the street isn't as smart or as tough as they think they are. You see all these rappers today? How many of their records are going to be selling in 20 years? The music they make is garbage. It's all synthesized. But people love that music. That music is not teaching anything positive. And besides white supremacy, look what's influencing us as African American people. You know, it's funny, when I go out to work every day, have a number of Negroes who have their music as high as they can go. They know the words to that rap music, but they can't even add one and one. They can't even count change. They know football statistics, but they don't know the basics of how to get out of that situation. And it's not that they're stupid either. They don't want to. And that ghetto mindset equals psychological slavery. And that's what Brother Kanye West meant by 400 years. That's where slavery psychologically has been a choice. You have a number of people who can get out of their situation, but they don't want to get out. They're proud being victims. So at the end of the day, can't blame everything on white supremacy. You have to look at yourself and examine your own psychological effects, whether it's health, whether it's mental. The bottom line, we as African Americans need to get rid of that ghetto mindset if we are to lift ourselves from the bottom of the barrel. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show for this evening, Tuesday, June 10th, 2018. You can tune into the 411 Talk Zone radio show every Saturday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. I've been doing my shows Tuesdays, Thursdays, and, of course, Fridays. Tonight I'm going to talk about, can the black community be saved? Guest calling number to that show is 215-383-5785. If you like my videos, please share and subscribe to the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube so I can continue to give you quality information for educational purposes from a professional and mature perspective. Now, on my channel, I do not debate, engage in any emotional or controversial issues. Now, that just depends on how you receive the information. If it hurts your feelings or it's sensitive, well, that means I am hitting a button. And if I'm doing that, you should correct your behavior, because my channel is an educational channel. It's a self-awareness channel. It's therapeutic. And what I do is give you information that's realistic but 100% positive. This is why I do not get involved with any drama or unnecessary bickering, because it is counterproductive. Once you have the knowledge, particularly regarding ghetto mindsets as an African American community, and you take the tools and you correct your behavior, you can get out of your situation. Because when you have knowledge, you have power. And if you have a topic, a new YouTube channel or business that you would like for me to discuss on YouTube or Blog Talk Radio, feel free to email me at lej6521@gmail.com. And if you have a comment, please leave your comment in the comment section under the video. But make sure that your comments are pithy. No bloviating, pettifogging, or filibustering, if you wish to opine. Now that's it for this video. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. Remember, please be gentle and respectful to each other, and have a wonderful and blessed evening. God bless you.